I would call it obsession with mindset really started when I was a young kid, right? When I was really young, like 6, 7 years old. And when I got to high school, basketball became my passion, and then it eventually became lifting. But with basketball, my goal was to go as far as I could. So I remember my junior year, I went over to the township library. I got a book out about sports psychology. And in the book, they talked about visualization. So I took what I learned in there. We're gonna go over that tonight. And the cool thing that really stuck with me, they had this study they did with the Italian Olympic ski team. Hooked them up with electrodes, brain activity, had them go down to slaloms, saw how the brain lit up. Then they taught them for a couple weeks how to do visualization. Hooked them up again, had them sit just like you guys, and had them visualize. And the brain lit up the same exact way. It did not know the difference between if they were actually doing it or if they were visualizing it. So it was super powerful. So I got hooked on that. Now I combined that, obviously, with the physical practice. When I was doing 500 jump shots a day, I was visualizing every night. Everything I did went towards that. So a lot of this stuff you also have to put into practice. You got to put in the physical work as well. This is mental training, the stuff we're going over tonight. Just like you train the physical body, you got to train the mind. So we're going to go over theater of the mind, I call it visualization tonight, reframing, which I'm going to start with, and then journaling techniques that I use. So the journaling technique, you guys have one of them in your hands. That has the power to transform your life, especially if you've been holding on to something, some type of grudge with somebody. Your body internalizes that. You got to get rid of it. You got to let it go. First thing, the quickest thing I'll go over tonight is reframing. So reframing is really, you take any situation that happens. So I guess I should premise it with you. Your brain cannot ignore a question, which is super powerful when you have that knowledge. Your brain can't ignore a question. If I ask everybody here, would you eat today? Something comes to mind instantly. You can't ignore it. It's based on something called the open loop theory. So if you have any shows that you've ever binge watched, and you couldn't study this, and they know this, the people that make the shows. The open loop theory, if there's a loop and there's a gap, the brain does not like that. It wants to fill that in. So when you ask it a question, it will come up with an answer to that. So the first question I use personally, and that I teach people, think of the worst thing that's happened to you in the past week. Okay, thought came to mind. And what you would ask yourself with that is, what's great about this problem? I've never seen any situation that you can't come up with an answer to that too. When I coach people through this, I don't care how bad, how devastating the situation was. What's great about this problem? For example, when I tore my first patellar tendon, I got in a funk for a couple of days. I was in bad shape mentally, right? Because it was no man's land for me. It was new territory. By the end of that weekend, it was 2012, I started asking myself that question. So, okay, well, there's nothing out there on this injury. That's an opportunity. So I wrote a book on it, which I help people all over the world with, right? Completely shifted my mind. So what's great about this problem? That's one question. Two more questions. If you have anxiety or overwhelm, what you focus on is what you feel. And what you focus on expands. So when you're feeling any of those emotions, ask yourself the question, what am I focused on right now? Now, everything that you think of, when we get to the visualization, everything is a mental image in your head. So if you're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, anger, there's a picture in your head that's associated with that. So what am I focused on right now? Because when you ask yourself that, okay, I'm thinking about all the things I got to do next week. You can shift your focus. And then based off of that one, where do I need clarity right now? The brain is only going to proceed and go forward when it has clarity. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. What that means, it needs prediction and response. Prediction and response. So anxiety, for example, when you think too far out into the future, right? If you're thinking about next month, there's not that much prediction and response with that. Anxiety goes up. Every time you feel anxious, it's because you're forward thinking. So you think about anxiety, worry, fear. If we look at the timeline of life, past, present, future, where does anxiety, worry, and fear exist? Where? Somebody tell me. Future. It's all future-based. So another shift in mindset that helped me a lot. When you actually think about it, does the future actually exist? It's always the present moment. So what does that tell you about your fear, your anxiety, your worry? It's just parts of your imagination and pictures that are coming to your head. When I resigned from teaching in 2012, I had to do a lot of this mental work because it was scary. I loved having that job, stepping out on my own to run the gym. And once I realized that, you know what? I'm thinking out into the future. And even if it doesn't work, I'm not going to die. I'm going to be okay. Put me at ease. So I was thinking, what if it doesn't work and I don't have any income? What am I going to do? I gave up this job. I was that close to getting into the pension system, all this stuff. Does the reframing make sense? That's the simplest thing I'll teach you tonight, is reframing. So you have to train yourself to do this, though, because your brain is hardwired for the negative. Everything that your brain inputs, the main thing is survival first. So from a survival point of view, your brain is scanning for negative situations, threats, situations that you might feel judged in. Judgment's very powerful on your brain in a negative way. So that's reframing. Now, journaling. Journaling is very powerful for a few reasons. It slows down your thoughts. So if you got racing thoughts, you put pen to paper, all of a sudden, you can't think as fast as you're writing. This is why going to therapy helps people, because they got to slow down their thoughts and they talk it out. You can do the same thing with journaling. So the worksheet you have is the more advanced version. The first form of journaling that I like to do, real simple to give you clarity. What do I want right now? What do I want right now? So write that question down, because you guys should be able to take this and start using it. And it's just for that day. It doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. What do I want? You can write down the answer to that. Nobody's going to read these. Nobody's going to snoop through your journal. So those 3 questions should give you clarity. Now, all the stuff that I'm going over is what I would call quadrant 2 activities. They're important, but they're not urgent. So it's very easy not to do this stuff. They're important, but they're not urgent. That's the type of stuff, that box, that we should probably spend 80% of our time doing. I'm not just talking about the mental work, relationships, recreation, that type of stuff. Acquiring knowledge, it's important, but it's not urgent. Working out, for most people, is important, but it's not urgent. But if you look at highly successful people, they spend most of their time in quadrant 2. Now, the next one, the worksheets that you guys have, this is called Do the Work. It's by a lady named Byron Katie. So you're actually going to go through this on your sheet. I'll guide you through it, right? So you can read the top. Think of a recurring stressful situation, a situation that is reliably stressful, even though it may have happened only once and recurs only in your mind. As you answer each of the questions below, allow yourself to mentally revisit the time and place of the stressful occurrence. Use short, simple sentences. So number 1, and I'll give you a couple seconds to write it down. In this situation, who angers, confuses, saddens, or disappoints you, and why? So if you look at the example below, it says, I'm angry with Paul because he doesn't listen to me. So I want you to fill out number 1. Again, nobody else is going to read this. You can burn this afterwards, but you're getting it out of your physiology, out of your mind. Burn it? You can burn it. I am blank with who because of what? Number 2, in this situation, how do you want them to change? What do you want them to do? So you can read the example. I want Paul to see that he is wrong. I want him to stop lying to me. I want him to see that he's killing himself. So I want who to do what? Who is that person? What do you want them to do? Number 3, in this situation, what advice would you offer to them? Their name should or shouldn't. You can read the example of Paul. Paul should take a deep breath, and then it goes on. So what advice would you give that person? They should do what, or shouldn't do what? And this is for you, not them. I'm with it, I'll go on to number 4. In order for you to be happy in this situation, what do you need them to think, say, feel, or do? To read the example, I need Paul to hear me when I talk to him. I need him to take care of himself. I need who to do what for you to be happy in this situation. Do you think of them in this situation? Make a list. Be petty and judgmental here. Getting this out of your system. Paul is unfair, arrogant, loud, dishonest, way out of line, and unconscious. So what do you think of them in this situation? Be petty and judgmental. The more so, the better. And number 6 on this first part is, what is it about this situation you don't ever want to experience again? I don't ever want Paul to lie to me again. So what about this situation do you never want to experience again?
Is it for that person or us, or it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay. Now we're going to go on to the next part. Investigate each of the above statements using the 4 questions, which we're going to go over. Always give yourself time to let the deeper answers meet the questions. So sometimes you got to sit on this stuff. Then turn each thought around. So that's a pretty cool part we're going to get to. So if you flip to the next page. So the belief that you have. All right, so the number 1 thing you wrote on the first page, is it true? Yes or no? Yes or no? Number 2, can you absolutely know that it is true? So number 3 is, how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? So whether you believe it's absolutely true or you don't believe it's absolutely true, how do you react? And what happens to you when you believe that thought? And there's questions below that could help you with that. Take your time with it, but number 4 is, who would you be without that thought? Who or what are you without the thought? If you let go of that thought, who would you be? Who would you be without the thought? Now, my favorite part of these 3 pages is the next part. There's 3 turnarounds we're going to do. So first thing, I'll take you through them. You're going to write them down. Then we're going to write down a specific example of each of those turnarounds. So you're first going to turn it around to yourself. So instead of Paul hurt me. I hurt myself. So that's the first turnaround. Turn it around to yourself. Whatever that initial belief was, turn it around to yourself and write that down. I didn't listen to myself. I didn't love myself. Whatever it is, let's keep it real simple. Second turnaround, to the other person. So instead of he hurt me, I hurt him. Now some of you, that was easier than others. So a little trick you can do with that, a lot of times I would come up with the initial thought and then I would just go to the turnarounds. Talking about reframing, right? We talked about reframing first, another way to reframe. And when you forgive a situation or somebody else, it's not for them, it's for you. Right? Think of that word, forgiving. Forgiving me that situation. You can reframe that. Thank you for giving me this situation to grow. I always believe you should forgive people the way I try to live, instantly. Because it's only going to hurt you if you hold on to it. Now there's something I'm not really going to go into too deep tonight, but called TMS. Right? It's basically rooted in psychosomatic medicine. Right? How you will get symptoms, and the back is a very common area. Symptoms are real, but what's causing it? Right? It's usually holding on to stuff when you got too many shoulds that you're doing consistently. Should do this, I should do this, right? And it's based in Freudian psychology, like the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is the pleasure principle. If you're never giving that part of your brain pleasure, it's gonna come up. The symptom, I've seen it hundreds of times in the gym throughout the year. Now, I don't bring it up to everybody because a lot of people get offended if you bring it up to them. So they're attached to that symptom or whatever it is. You're not telling the person that they're making it up in their mind. The symptom is real, but your brain can produce a symptom instantaneously by reducing blood flow in the area. Like if your back goes out, you get a spasm, you think about it, I went to tie my shoe, my back went out. That doesn't make any sense, right? You're lifting weights, doing all this stuff. It's the trigger. So it reduces blood flow, reduce oxygen, pain gets extreme. I've studied that a lot because I had to deal with it a lot personally myself. So with this type of thing, it was back in 2013, I was going through my second real bad episode of TMS. I was up at a seminar in Rhode Island, could hardly even walk. I was so twisted up. I can't even get into that position. Like my body was contorted. And I was working with a therapist on that particular topic, like just the TMS type of thing. So I went to the Barnes & Noble after day one of the seminar, kind of like this, but I basically wrote this guy who was getting really under my skin an FU letter. No intention of giving it to him. So that's like the old Abraham Lincoln technique. Write somebody a letter, put it in a drawer. You already did what you had to do. I don't need to read it. So I wrote that letter out. I kid you not. I stood up. My back was completely fine, completely unlocked. I've seen this many times. I've coached a lot of people through this. It's a very real thing, but that's one of the powers of this. Right? This is for you, not the other person. Okay. Last thing we're going to go through is the visualization. So reframing, if you train yourself, should be something that happens all the time. It's not something like you say, okay, today I'm going to reframe. Actually, you just got to train your brain to do that. Everyone will tell you, and she probably finds it annoying sometimes, that's right where I go when there's an issue. Let's reframe it. What happens, right? So that should happen all the time. The journaling, it's up to you. You want to do that daily? Want to commit to 5 minutes to doing it? Right? Those 3 questions that I gave you to start out will take you 2 minutes to do, but it will help you. Theater of the mind, the visualization, do I hit it every single day? There's days that I miss, but I notice a big difference the days that I miss. I do it about 90% of the time. One of the first things I do in the day, theater of the mind. That's what I'm going to take you through. So I told you I started studying visualization, I don't know, almost 30 years ago now. The guy that coaches me, Matt Fury, there's a book called Psychosomatics, written by a plastic surgeon, Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And what the surgeon noticed, he would go in and fix people's faces or fix scars, and their whole reality would shift, right? No, he only changed something on the external. It happened, they started seeing different pictures in their head. They started seeing themselves a different way. So the guy, Matt, that coaches me, he bought the rights to that book. So he's like the best in the world at this stuff. So I get to learn directly from him. We do this a lot. We have calls every other week. And we spend time on this. So I'm going to take you guys through this. Whether you do it 2 minutes a day, my minimum is I try to do 10 minutes a day. Like that's what I said. I set my clock. I do my cold tub, hot tub. When I go in the hot tub, I do my theater of the mind. And that's my time to do it. So with this, you can put your papers down. I'll take you through a 10-minute session of this, and then we'll go over questions. So sit nice and tall. You're going to close your eyes. You're going to take in a couple deep breaths. We'll go 3 or 4. On each breath, just scan your body, see if there's any tension. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Find tension anywhere, just release it. Let the shoulders relax. Your body stores this stuff, so just relax, release it. Now what I want you to picture, that there's this radiant sun about 20 feet above your head. It's pouring down this white, golden light, and it's coming down towards the crown of your head, and is now entering into your head. This white, radiant light. So it's starting to fill up your skull, your neck, going down to your chest, shoulders, arms. And as it's filling you up, it's also washing away any negativity, any anxiety, any anger. It's washing that out of your body. Now it's filling up your torso, your hips, your thighs, your legs, going down your calves, your Achilles. It's going down into the ground. So now it's running from that sun right through you. I want you to picture yourself walking down any street that comes to mind. Think of Main Street, USA, whatever comes to your mind. Walking down that street, and I want you to picture what you're wearing. Wearing something that you feel really good in, you feel confident. Wearing that, you feel comfortable wearing that. As you're walking, notice a movie theater. And on the marquee, it says, now playing, movie of your life. Put your name there. So it catches your attention. I want you to see yourself walking over to the theater. You open the door, go up to the counter, purchase a ticket to the movie of your life. The guy gives you the ticket. You walk over to the ticket collector. They tell you it's your 3rd theater on the right. And picture what you're wearing. You walk down the hall. You get to the 3rd door on the right. You open it up. It just feels very inviting. It's good energy coming out of there. So you enter the theater. You're now in the theater of your mind. You walk in. You're the only person in there. There's nobody else in this theater. Pick any seat that you want. Just walk over to that seat. You're nice and relaxed, nice and comfortable. So you're in your seat, you're in your chair. Now the screen comes to life. And what I want you to play through for a few minutes on the screen is something that has already happened in your life. Think of one of the happiest moments of your life. It could be sports, it could be the day you got married, it could be the birth of a child. Doesn't matter how long ago. I want you to start playing that scene on the screen. And as you go through it, play around with your perspective, 1st person, 3rd person, speed, you can rewind it. Speed it up, slow it down. And each time you go through that scene, try to add a little more detail to it. Who was there? Really trying to get to how you felt at that moment. You're gonna run that through for a few minutes. Go as fast or as slow as you like. If you get to the end of the scene, run it through again. If your mind starts to drift, focus on your hands in the scene. That'll pull you right back. Put yourself in that moment. Let's run that scene through one more time. Let's bring that scene to a close. The screen goes blank. We're trying to focus in on how you feel in that moment. Now the screen's going to come back to life. But this time, I want you to start building a scene that's going to happen in your life. It hasn't happened yet. So this is a time where future-based thinking can be helpful to you. Something you desire, you've been wanting to happen in your life. I want you to start picturing that scene. Each time you run through it, add a little more detail to it. You can play around with perspective, first person, third person, see yourself as larger than life. Play around with the speed, you can freeze it. Each time you go through it, it's going to get a little more smooth. Really try to get yourself in the feeling of what that's going to feel like when that thing happens, when it finally comes to fruition. Going to go about another minute. Keep going, keep going. Picturing it. Make it feel as real as you can. Let's start bringing that scene to a close. Screen goes blank. Keep your eyes closed. I want you to take 3 deep breaths, and on each breath, picture something that you already have in your life that you're truly grateful for. After you get your 3 breaths, you can open your eyes. So that was 10 minutes, guys. Right, that's all that was 10 minutes. That works, though. If you're going to commit to doing it, that works every time. Now, the more faith you back that belief with, the more it's going to happen. If you're thinking about something but you don't actually believe it can happen, it's not going to happen. Your thoughts are frequencies that you put out there. You've all had the experience, I'm thinking about this person. I had the experience twice today. Well, I'm thinking about not this particular experience, but I'm thinking about that person, then they call you. Your thoughts are frequencies, right? You think about radio waves. You can hear the music, you can't see the waves. This works the same way, right? So it works on somewhat of a metaphysical faith level, but then also you're going to notice different situations. You're going to be more likely to see them, and it's going to move you towards that. And people that succeed at a very high level, they do that. Some do it consciously, some do it unconsciously. Just happens automatically for them. So to recap, right, you guys had reframing. Anybody remember one of those questions? What was one of the reframe questions? What's great about this problem? What am I focused on right now? Where do I need clarity? If you're thinking too far into the future, bring it back to the next step in the process. Don't worry about how it's going to happen. That's another thing, too, with theater of mind. Don't get caught up in the how. In the movies, they say it's suspension of disbelief. That's what you have to do with theater of mind. Suspend your disbelief. Don't worry about how it's going to happen. Just see the end result. So that's your reframing, those 3 questions. The journaling, okay? What do I want right now? How do I feel? What am I going to stop doing? And then you have the work. You guys don't need the worksheets to do the work. You can take that with you. Just take the parts of that, do the turnarounds, do that stuff. And then theater of the mind. Right? Theater of the mind, again, even if you could commit, the way the brain works, right? If I told you to do 30 minutes a day of that, you're probably not going to do it right now. If I say, hey, can you do 2 minutes a day of that? I don't see why anybody in here couldn't do 2 minutes a day of that. But the odds are that's not going to happen. So you have to decide if you're one of the people that's going to do that or do the stuff that we went over. Who thinks, raise their hand, that they're going to do at least one of the things we went over tonight on a consistent basis? Those are the 3 main things that I do personally for my mind. It's mental training. It's not easy.